trying to do for real. For real. Cosmic psychedelic funk is what I came to do. Yep. Hi. I'm soul by funky. Hey. Soul by funky. Hi. I'm soul by cosmic soul.
Hey, good morning or good afternoon, everybody. This is Alan T. Black. We want to welcome you to another episode of the Arthur's Authority Lounge, the official TV show for Arthur's. We're excited to have you tune in to another episode. This is year 2, y'all. We're very blessed to say that we've made it to this, the second year in 2025. The purpose of this show is really about bringing before you different local authors that we have here in the Omaha area, which I think right now probably metropolitan size of about 1 million people. So we're excited about that. I'm very excited because this afternoon I will be having the honor of interviewing Mr. Aaron Pettis, and he's going to share with you his authorship journey. I'll be doing the interview with him today. Takara and Nicole will not be able to make it, but hey, they said, Alan, go ahead and do what you need to do. So without further ado, I want to introduce you, our audience, to the esteemed Mr. Aaron Pettis. Aaron, thank you so much for being here with us today.
Yeah, I appreciate you inviting me out here.
So let's get into it. Tell me, where did all this start and how did you get to the point of calling yourself an author?
Where did this all start? Wow. Yeah, so I don't think I even read my first book until I was 18 years old.
Really?
Yeah, 18 years old. In high school and in junior high. Back when I was a kid, it wasn't cool to read, so so I skipped that on my rough journey towards where my writing career started, which was inside of a prison cell. So 2008 or 1998, I found myself incarcerated at 18 years old, and incarceration is boring, and so so I did a lot of reading, And as I read, it just opened up a whole new world to me, right? That I had skipped out on because I was too cool to read.
Right.
So, and not the fact that I couldn't read, I was a fantastic reader.
Mm-hmm.
And so opening up those books for the first time just opened up a new world of possibilities on what not just my incarceration could look like, right? Because up until that point, it was boring. And then reading these books opened up, a new world, gave me something to do. Give me something to dream about.
Mm-hmm.
And so it was in that prison cell. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna write a book. And so at that time, I didn't write the book. I just wrote a few short stories and kind of was just testing the water, seeing how people liked them. People responded well to the things I was writing. And then I didn't write again because I'd gotten out of prison, went back to prison, got out of prison, went back to prison, and then found myself in Leavenworth, Kansas, in a correctional facility, and was just like, I'm gonna try this thing. And so I sat down with a pen and a pad and wrote my first book, Riverside Epiphany, and it was an amazing journey for me, right? Because I created something that was my own, and it came straight from me, and it was very empowering to take that on. So I wrote it, and then I put it into my locker and forgot about it for a few years.
Come on, seriously? Are you serious?
Yes. Yeah. I put it in my locker, forgot about it. But I felt accomplished, right? I'd written
Well,
something,
yeah, of course you should.
Yeah.
You should.
Yeah. And I never had thought about the next step. This was just something I just wanted to do it, and I did it, and I was like, man, that was really cool. And then I put it into my locker, forgot about it. And like, yeah, I know. It was about 7 years later, and I had a new roommate, and he was like, I think I'd taken the book out of my locker, and he had asked me like, what is that? And I was like, oh, it's a book I wrote. He's like, you wrote a book? I'm like, yeah, it's just a book I wrote. He's like, let me read it. And so I gave it to him. He read it, and as the story was progressing and things were happening, he's like, getting angry with me, or like, because he's like, why does this happen to this person? Or he'd be happy, like, yeah, I'm glad she made it. And it was really cool to see his
Okay.
his journey along as he was reading my book. And I took I was like, okay, this is kind of cool. Like, uh, he's taking pleasure out of this. Maybe this isn't just like something I did as an aside. And so he's like, what are you going to do with it? I was like, I mean, when I get out, I'll try to get it published. And he was like, man, you're not going to do anything with it. I was like, what do you mean I'm not going to do anything with it? He was like, that book's been sitting in your locker for 7 years. I'm the first person who's read it. He's like, that's going to, if you put that back in your locker, it's going to remain in that locker, until eternity. Uh, he challenged me, and it really made me think like, okay, he's right. Maybe I'm not putting it out there because I don't have the courage
Right.
to have this writing out in the public for opinions and things of that nature. And so I wrote my mom I wrote my mom a letter and said, "Hey, will you send me a book of Christian publishers?" And so she sent me the Christian Writer's Guide.
Yeah, I've had that in the past. I know what you're talking about. Yes.
Yeah, and so I just went. I started at A, and I did
All the way through Z.
All the way.
Aaron, I've been there. I know
Yeah.
exactly what you're saying.
Yeah, so I just started sending the first 3 chapters out. Boom, boom. By the time I got to E, which is Elk Lake Publishing, I got a letter back from them saying they wanted to take me on, and so they gave me a 5-year book deal. And while I was still inside of prison, which was kind of crazy because I didn't, for one, I just written the book kind of to see if I could create something. 2, I didn't think that the journey of reconnecting with my community could happen until I got out of prison, right? And so for this book deal to happen was a very empowering thing for me because my presence was going out, in this book form, out into the world and making an impact. And so it was just a really cool and empowering moment in my journey. I'd already been on the path of doing well in prison. I was a tutor. I was doing other things that I was already on that journey, but getting that publishing deal really solidified for me the fact that, okay, I'm a writer and I'm validated. And so, but yeah, that's how the first book was published. And after that, I got out the pen and the pad again, and it was book 2 was written, book 3 was written, and it's just been a really cool journey for sure.
So let's go back to the moment that your roommate said, "You're an author." How did that hit? What did you think about what he said? Hey, you've written a book. What did you really think?
There's certain so I wanted to be that, right? But you have all types of things you want to be in your head, right?
Right.
You want to be a pastor, you want to be a president, or you want to be a firefighter. But when that's what you want. But when somebody else puts that on you, it's a different type of self-actualization, right? Because not only are you saying I want to be a writer, but now somebody's saying you're a writer.
Yes.
Which is it confirms something in you, and so it was just it was a powerful moment. It was not only was it powerful for him to say that, but it was a powerful, like I was saying before, to see him, because I'm in the room with him as he's reading, the book, and so I got to see in real time.
Yeah, that must have been really cool.
Yeah, it was.
That must have been really cool.
Yeah,
Aaron.
it was really cool because you got when you're writing your story, you're hoping that as you cross this arc that people are reacting in certain ways, whether that's with hope or anger or despair or whatever. You're hoping that this chapter is where it's going to bring those things together, and if they're going to feel this emotion, or they're going to be in this place with you. And so to be in real time and watch him get to chapter 22 or chapter 18 and be like, is he going to be mad? And then have him slam the book. Hey, why would you do that? I'm like, okay, here we go.
You got
him. I got him. And so, yeah, it was really cool to be in that moment at that time, sharing that experience with him.
So this first book, tell us more. So is it autobiographical? Is it, say, science fiction? Or because you're listening a lot of emotions from not just probably your roommate, but from other people who have read that first book.
Right.
What is the genre that you say it would fit into?
Right. So it would be Christian fiction. So
Okay.
my first book is Riverside Epiphany, and it's a Christian fiction it's loosely, there's events from my life that are loosely pulled from and injected into the storyline, but it's most definitely not an autobiographical
Okay, no, I
story.
just wanted to be sure for
Right.
our audience.
Yeah. No,
Okay.
for sure. Yeah. And so like, when somebody encouraged me to write, I said, "Well, where should I start?" And so he said, "Well, write what you know,
That makes sense.
what everybody's
That
told."
makes sense.
And so I was like, "Well, I know this life, but I know how my life has also changed. So how can I bring those two together?" And so I wrote Riverside Epiphany, which is a story of a guy who's living a life of crime, goes into prison, has a spiritual experience, and then gets back out into his community, and his old friends come along and suck him back into a situation where now he has to navigate and decide, that spiritual journey worked for me outside or inside prison. How does that mesh with me out? How does that mesh with my life outside of prison?
Right.
And with these situations where he knows how to operate, and now he has to rely on this other path that he's been on, and how do those things meet? And so it's a really cool story because it asks hard questions. I think that at least in my personal spiritual journey, that we as a Christian faith shy away from hard questions, right? We shy away from like asking like, what happens if you doubt, or or things of like,
Exactly.
or you're angry, should you be, and so I inject these questions into the characters' dialogue, into the plot points, just to really challenge my reader to think about like what would I do in that situation, or is this character's reaction out of line with his belief system, and then how does that make me feel? And then also there's a beautiful love story in there too, because I'm a romantic, and so
It's okay, Aaron. It's okay, bro. I got you. I got you.
And so it was a really cool journey, really cool book to write for sure.
So it sounds like, as far as your roommate at that time, he's reading the book, and not only is he on the journey, but is it possible that he is seeing himself inside this book as well?
Yes, for sure, because I wrote the stories because this character goes into prison, and so a lot of the characters that are in the book are based off of friends of mine that were like, put me in your book, as I'm writing.
Okay.
And so,
Okay.
and so
That's what you asked for.
yeah, so I would take them, and of course I wouldn't hold to some of my friends. I made bad guys, and they were like, "Man, why am I a bad guy?" Some of my friends I made good guys, which then started the conversation between friends. Like, hold on, why is he a good guy? I'm a bad guy,
Because you're the writer. That's why.
Yeah,
You can do what you can do.
for
So.
sure. Yeah, and so it was really cool.
So, based on what I'm hearing you say, Aaron, with this first book, it's taking your readers kind of up and down through valleys and everything in terms of their emotional investment in
Right,
that particular book.
right.
It sounds to me like, realistically,
Yeah,
this is a sort of screenplay of some sort
right,
that can go from the pages of a book onto the screen or something like that.
right.
Is that an eventual goal with the first book or your following books?
No, so yeah, I actually turned the first book into a series,
Yeah.
a television series, and so yeah, waiting to get that produced. But it's and you know, because of my upbringing and the way that I experienced the world, my stories don't follow they're gritty, they're not your things hit you that you as a reader might say, I didn't want that to happen, right? But my experience in life has taught me that sometimes those things happen,
Right.
the things that you don't want to happen, and so my stories deal directly with those things, and it translates well onto television because you have these events that are happening that are just almost episodic, in nature. But yeah, it's really cool.
So you mentioned that you are writing a series. So this was the first book. You
Okay,
said-
so I wrote it. I turned this book into a television series.
Oh, okay. You turned the first book
Right,
into
right.
a television
Yeah,
series. So
right.
Riverside Epiphany will then eventually be
Right.
a TV
Hopefully.
series. Well, we're just going to
Hopefully.
make sure that this
Yeah.
happens because as you were talking, I thought, how prophetic is it that your roommate, after a 7-year mark, and we know what the number 7 means.
Right, right.
That's
Yeah.
not just by coincidence
No,
that
it's
he
not.
said, hey, you need to do something with it. What's going on? So at that 7-year mark, something had to transition
Right.
for you to say, now I got to go on this walk of faith and make this thing happen.
Yeah. Yeah, for sure. It was, yeah, I mean, this is what, as a man of faith, this is what we believe God does. That
Exactly.
the righteous steps of a man are ordered by the Lord.
That's right.
And so I might have put it into that locker thinking, I'm just gonna put it in there. But there was always a plan, and as my life has proven out for myself, I'm on that path, and God definitely has His hand on my life.
That's fantastic. So we know Riverside Epiphany is going to be a TV series. We know that's coming at some point.
It's coming.
So that was book number 1.
Right.
So have you written other books as a follow-up? Are they in the same vein as Riverside Epiphany, or is it something different?
Right. So the second book is Morning into Dancing, and so it's called Morning into Dancing: A Journey into the Soul. And what I found during that creative process of writing Riverside Epiphany and kind of injecting those questions that we find hard to ask, it didn't really satisfy my desire to ask those questions.
Okay.
And so Morning into Dancing is more pointedly, it's a compilation of short stories that more pointedly asks those questions, right? So questions about race, right?
Okay.
I wrote this book during the racial awakening we had in the 2000 teens, and it was hard being when I was incarcerated. We had black and we had white, and nobody wanted to start a conversation, right?
Mm-hmm.
And especially as men of faith on the inside, knowing that our God calls for forgiveness and grace and these things, but feeling so passionately about the injustices we were seeing. And then on the other side, you had our Caucasian brothers who were feeling a lot of the same emotions, but the conversations weren't starting. And so in one of the stories that's in this book, it deals directly with that question of, let's just get this conversation started, right? Let's talk about it. Just get it out there, because through communication, you'll find growth in relationships, right?
Yeah, that's the truth.
Absolutely. And so we deal with race, having transgender children, greed, being mad at God. Like, can we say
That we're mad at
that
God.
we're mad at God?
Yes.
Right. Like, is that a thing? And so I wrote a story that deals directly with that. A character in the story loses a loved one and has some very strong feelings about that loss, and having the feeling of not being able to get that out because of spiritual expectations that were placed on him.
Yes.
And so then having a character come and coach and grow with him out of that, and those two characters growing together through this moment. But yeah, Morning into Dancing is 13 or 14 stories dealing with different topics that I find that we just don't talk about as Christians. We don't, because it's uncomfortable. We don't want to say it because we don't want people to think we're less spiritual than we are, right? We want to hold on to our facade of spirituality,
of course.
right? And so I'm like, ask the questions, man, because everybody's thinking it, Everybody's thinking it. Everybody's feeling it.
It's like the elephant in the room.
It's the elephant in the room,
Yes.
right? It's the elephant in the room. And what I found, right, by writing this book and then I read this book with some of my friends on the inside, is that in reading this and having these discussions, what you find is this identification between the two people, that, wow, okay, I can trust you and say, man, I felt this, like I was mad at God, like this happened, and for a period of time in my life, I was shaking my fist at the sky.
Sure.
And I didn't want to, and it made it worse that I couldn't talk about it. But now that I am, I'm realizing that you went through it too. You lost somebody and you felt that same thing. And so maybe it doesn't mean that God doesn't love me, or maybe it doesn't mean that I'm not a Christian,
Mm-hmm.
And so, yeah, it was a really cool book to write, and a really cool book to read with my fellow brothers on the inside, for sure.
So sometimes as authors, we have a particular flow that we have. Just going to digress for just a second.
No, for sure.
Do you have like a particular time of the day that it flows? Because like for
Right.
me, for some reason, Aaron, it's like 6 in the morning to about 9 and
Right.
it flows.
Yeah.
Now after 9 in the morning, it just don't work for me.
Right.
But
Right.
is there like a time where Aaron says, "Oh yeah, I got to
Right.
do this thing"?
Yeah. So at night normally is my meditation time. So I'll lay down
Okay.
at night and, you know, picture how the next chapter is going to go, how the characters are going to develop, what's going to happen, and really dig into that in my mind. And then come the morning time when I wake up, it's ready to go.
Okay,
You
that's
know,
great. That's
it's
cool.
already written, you know, because I've spent so much time thinking about it that by the time I put pen to pad, that chapter's already written. And so I don't, and I don't normally don't grab a pen and paper and not know what the first word's going to be on that page.
Okay.
You know, normally when I go in, it's, you know, that chapter's already completed.
Now you do know that it's kind of out of the ordinary for you to conceptualize something in your mind,
Right.
but the next day you put pen to paper because a lot of times for creatives,
Right.
you may lose that transitional process because you had it there, but when it comes to pen and paper, it's not quite the same.
Right.
So you're to be commended because you're carrying that momentum
Right.
from night to day, which normally does not happen.
Right. Well, I would also say that's probably true it probably holds more true for people who are, I was incarcerated. And so that creation, the portion, there wasn't a lot to interrupt it between
Okay.
going to sleep, waking up the next day, and writing, right? Whereas you're at home, you're conceptualizing, you're thinking about it, and then you're getting a text or you're jumping on
Exactly.
Facebook.
Yes.
you
Yes.
know?
Yes.
Or something is happening to interrupt this process, right? Whereas I was, you know, laying in my bed, putting this thing together, and then I'm waking up in this go time.
Okay.
You know,
Got it.
and so there's not a lot of interruption, you know, between those two phases, and it was really, you know, I found it more difficult to write out here
Really?
than I found it to write while I was on the inside, for sure, just because of those distractions.
It's almost like you had, when you were incarcerated, you had a dedicated space
Right, for sure.
by which you could operate. But when you're now out in society with so many different distractions, it's easy for you to say, "I'm gonna go left instead of right." I mean but that's
Yeah.
human nature. So
Yeah, for sure.
okay, so we're getting down short on time, but now, do you consider yourself Christian inspirational, Christian fiction? Not putting a label on it, but
Right.
where do you kind of see yourself fitting in, or you don't fit in that box, would you say?
I would say definitely that my books are Christian in nature.
Okay.
Christian fiction, the first one, or Christian urban fiction, probably the first one.
Okay.
The second one would be Christian inspirational, and then the third one, Broken Windows, is an autobiography. So it tells the story of well, not really the story of my life. I titled it Broken Windows because instead of taking like a linear story and telling it from when I was 5, this happened, and now this is how this. I really just peeked into the broken windows of my life
Okay.
and told the story of what was happening at that moment, right? So we looking at 10 and we see where Aaron is at, and then we look in at 15 and we
Okay.
see where he's at.
Got it.
Then we look in at 20 and we see where he's at, rather than running you through all the gambit of my whole entire life. Because really, for me, there were specific events that shaped me, you know, and really those are the things that I wanted to tell. I wanted to talk about in Broken Windows were these certain events that happened to place
Right.
identities on me.
Right. So, tell me the name of each book, because I think you mentioned 3 books that you've done.
Yes.
The first one was Riverside Epiphany.
Yep.
What's the second one?
That's Morning into Dancing,
Morning into Dancing.
A Journey into the Soul.
Okay.
That's one title. And then the third one is Broken Windows.
Got it.
Yep.
So the third one, is it fair to say, is getting more into the inner story
Yes.
of Aaron, kind of being more autobiographical in a sense?
Absolutely. That's absolutely what is it. It was probably the hardest book I've ever written, because it's easy for me to talk like part of the way that I make a living is telling my story. It's one thing to tell it, and have it
Yeah,
go in and out.
it's a whole different thing to write it down. That
Yeah,
that delves into a whole
for
different
sure.
arena.
For sure.
So, getting down to the last couple of minutes. So you've got 3 books out, but I've already heard you say the first book is definitely going to be a movie of some sort.
Yes.
Is it fair to say that's the same process with books 2 and 3? And are you gravitating more into being a screenwriter as well?
Right. Yeah. So I don't think there's no intent right now to turn book 2 and 3 into. Definitely not book 3 and 2.
Well,
into
okay.
the-
I had to ask, Aaron. I just had to,
no.
audience, I had to ask.
No, it was hard enough to write that book. I don't
yeah,
want it on.
okay.
I don't want it on the screen.
Okay,
But,
I get it. You don't want to see your life on stage sometimes.
yeah, but yeah, for sure. I'm definitely gravitating more towards screenplays, just because I'm a cinephile. I love movies. I grew up watching television with my family. Every night, and then we'd have movie nights at the end of the week with our family members, and so it was definitely like a way that our family bonded and shared life experiences, and really stoked my imagination for just stoked my imagination. It's why the things that I like are so varied. I love sci-fi. I love fantasy.
Okay.
I love urban fiction. I love history. Like
That's your vibe.
Gambit. Yeah, the gambit.
That's your vibe. Okay, I got
So,
it.
but yeah, I'm definitely looking to push more into the screenplays as my life continues on, for sure,
Okay.
on this journey.
Great. Okay, so we're getting ready to close out in about 50 seconds or so.
Right.
We need you to give the audience your contact information where they can get your books.
Right.
How can they reach Aaron if they want you to come in and do a workshop or something like that? So I need you to share that with the audience as well.
Yeah, for sure. So if you want to buy one of my books or purchase that content, you can either find me on Amazon or on Kindle, or you can just jump in my DMs on Facebook Messenger and say, "Hey, man, I want a book," and we can get you one. I can autograph it for you and all those type of things. Also, if you want me to come in and do a speaking engagement, same thing. Hit me up on Facebook Messenger. I really love coming into spaces and sharing my story and empowering people to look beyond labels and identities that we
Okay.
put on each other.
Great. Hey, we ran out of time. I apologize for that because your story is so fascinating. But audience, we want to thank Mr. Aaron Pettis for being here today.
Thank you.
You have been tuned into a great episode of the Arthur's Authority Lounge, the official TV show for Arthur's. Hey, we will see you with our next episode. Y'all be blessed and take care. Bye-bye.
What you trying to do for real? For real. Cosmic psychedelic funk is what I came to do.